A state minister, a chemistry professor, an energy executive and a football director walk into an interior design workshop and find a perhaps surprising amount in common to discuss. On the eve of the 2026 Munich Security Conference, the Foreign Desk and Hitachi Energy brought together a panel at Holzrausch Studio with Monocle Radio's Carlota Rebelo and Andrew Mueller. The guests were Maxine Ghavi, Region Head Europe, Hitachi Energy, Markus Blume, Bavarian State Minister of Science and Art, Professor Wolfgang Herrmann, former President of the Technical University of Munich, Bianca Rech, German football international, now Director of FC Bayern Women. All four work in fields where collaboration is key, where diverse inputs are vital, and where keeping everyone focused on a goal is a ceaseless but rewarding challenge. Where is the overlap between running a global energy company and running a football team? How can science and politics better understand each other? And where are the advantages in continuing to promote and protect diversity? This is the Foreign Desk.
Maxine, perhaps I'll begin with you. I want to talk about this duality of energy and people when it comes to network and the importance of collaboration.
Thanks. Look, I think importance of collaboration as a company, Hitachi Energy, on daily basis, we're solving some of the most complex problems. We deliver some of the most complex solutions in the energy transition. And we have been doing that for over 100 years. There's no way that we could possibly do this without collaboration. And it's been our culture where we've been promoting diversity of thought and collaboration. When you bring people with different backgrounds together and put a problem in front of them, inevitably you get different types of discussions and different solutions. And I think we see this not only in our business and as we work with our customers, partners, and other stakeholders in the energy transition, but we also see the broader network. We have our internal network of people, but then there's the broader network with even more stakeholders. And I think one of the examples recently that I think really got me excited is I was at the North Sea Summit in Hamburg, where the Hamburg Declaration was signed. And this is really about making the North Sea a clean energy hub that goes across borders, thinking about moving green electrons across borders freely and be able to really enable a reliable, resilient, and affordable and green network power for people.
I'll put a variation on that to you, Bianca, over there on the end, because it does strike me that in your particular field is literally where teamwork is most exposed. Our other panelists here do collaborate with various sorts of networks, but they don't usually have to do it with a stadium full of people screaming at them. With that kind of focus, what have you learned about how to do what Maxine was saying, get a very diverse array of people to focus on one problem, which in your case is how to get this ball into that net?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I get this asked a lot because people ask me, what are the challenges? And I always say, there's no challenge. It's more about how do I bring the characteristics of every different culture and the strengths together. So in our team, imagine we have 25 players and we have 12 different nationalities. So every culture brings something special. I always say, the Germans, very structured, very organized. Then we have the Italians or the Serbians, very emotional, bringing the power on the pitch. Then we have the Africans, very smooth, very calm on the pitch. And then you have the Swedish or the Scandinavians, for example. They're very analytics. They ask why we're doing it, what are we doing? So it's quite interesting. And in the end, we all speak the same language. We want to put the energy on the pitch. Yeah, it's about the strengths and the different cultures, bringing it together. So every culture, every person every player in our team is a piece of a big puzzle. So, and for us, it's very easy, to be honest, because we're all there for the same reason.
Minister Blume, I would like to bring you in because when we hear these themes...
I'm wondering how.
Don't worry, I think we can do it sort of seamlessly. But when we think about these themes, I keep thinking about, the project of the high-tech agenda. And of course, this is something where the vision to deliver that only really works with this cross-sector collaboration and bringing all these different parties together. So how are you, seeing the delivery of such an ambitious agenda like that with this cross-sector collaboration coming to fruition?
Well, given the fact that today a lot of transformation is evolving everywhere in basically every different dimension, and the same is the case in the field of science. And one key for addressing all these transformations and handling all these challenges is by collaborating. And the truth in science is not the single genius guy that is about to invent something, but bringing together all the bright people, connecting the dots, building the bridges. And today, not only focusing on one university, on one institution, on one chair, but trying to develop ecosystems where you have a unique combination of universities. Of course, they must be top class, no question. Industry leaders, startup companies, research institutions. And this maybe not in the way we did things traditionally in Germany in the very structured way, but allowing people for connecting with each other. So one guy told me, building up a new university, the most important thing is to take care for the cafeteria because the most exciting things are going to happen in this place where people by accident come together. Then something new can emerge. And this was somehow the spirit behind the high-tech agenda. Of course, there was also more strategy around, but not by precisely developing everything according to a plan, but just to move in with massive additional resources. We're talking about a 5.5 billion investment program. We brought 1,000 new professorships to our Bavarian universities. We increased the numbers of student capacity by more than 13,000. So it is the sheer amount of resources, but also a new spirit by developing these things.
Professor Herrmann, this seems like a good time to bring you in because one of the other kind of collaborations and partnerships we did want to talk about was that between politics and the sciences. And that can obviously be a fairly vexed one because this is surely an attempt by the people who know they're right, i.e. the scientists, to persuade the ones who think they are.
You know, when I started president of Technical University of Munich 30 years ago, I put forward 3 principles. One is interdisciplinarity, because the most interesting things in science and technology happen upon interdisciplinary collaboration, different views and different approaches to solving problems. Second, internationality. And now we're having more than 40% international students at this very university in Munich. And third is the spirit of entrepreneurship. And all is about networks and all is about people. The people who then see the cafeteria, of course. And not only meet there, but also in the laboratories and workshops and so on. And so it's all about networks and the spirit among the people. I also want to say that it's the environment that has to be created, which is science and technology friendly, in order also to give an opportunity to what I call the serendipity. Because serendipity in life has an important role once in a while. So the greatest inventions in the history of mankind were made by serendipity, but in a fruitful environment. And that's the point. And I'm very happy that the entrepreneurial university came to the fore. Actually, it was 30 years ago when I met Mrs. Clatton, visited with me in my office, and she said, it's very bold that you claim the entrepreneurial university. And I said, this is also very dangerous because traditional academia didn't like this interaction with industry too much. It was tolerated. But now, 30 years later, it's highly accepted, and we want to have it. And in the meantime, TU Munich has around about 100 spin-offs every single year. And we have decacorns and unicorns, quite a few. You see, but this is a matter of spirit that can be generated over a longer period of time. It's nothing you can invent by one piece of paper. You have to live it, and that's why it's all about people. So the mindset of people had to be changed gradually. And now I'm happy that this principle is very highly accepted also in Germany, in other German universities.
It is interesting as well when we talk about, the energy transition and a more resilient future. Even the title of the book we've co-produced, Powering Purpose, that really makes me think about this notion and this need beyond collaboration, but I guess to put interests versus values on a dual track. And I guess maybe I'll throw this one to you, Minister. When it comes to having this long-term vision, how do you battle that duality between what you know is in the long-term interests of the state, of the government to implement, versus, the core beliefs of the moment that we are living through now? Because having that long-term view can be tricky.
The good thing here in Bavaria is that we have a political situation that has been stable for more than 70 years. And this helped the state to develop in a very strategic way, to move forward from an industry state to a high-tech region today. But of course, there's a point. So the topics I'm in charge for are not the topics that make people really excited in their daily life. Because when I talk about the new opportunities that come with fusion energy, or we are talking about new space, or today we just inaugurated the new quantum computer, the first European quantum computer that has been installed today here at the Leibniz Supercomputing Center in Munich. For most of the people, this, for obvious reasons, has no relevance for their daily life today. But the point is, of course, it will shape our future in a very dramatic way. So we have to develop a narrative and creating awareness that this is also of relevance for the distribution of power and wealth in the future. And if it's true that we do not want to become dependent on other regions in the world that do not even share our values, then it's important that we're willing to somehow take on the driver's seat and say, okay, well, that's an important issue and there are so many other priorities, but our number one priority is innovation, progress, and trying to contribute to the future.
Maxine, I do want to come back to you with what has become, I think, a recurring theme of this discussion, which is the value in having a diversity of backgrounds and ideas brought to bear on a particular problem, because in certain quarters, that has become actually a somewhat unfashionable and derided idea in recent years.
That's true. I think we see a lot of changes in the world, and values that we thought were standards they no longer seem to be standard. But quite honestly, I think as a company, as an organization, and I think going to the partnership we just announced with FC Bayern, it really shows that you have to amplify your message. And I think at the end of the day, what we need to focus on is addressing challenges. And addressing challenges, as I've already mentioned, and I think the other panelists have mentioned, really requires diversity. And I think we need to leverage whatever platform that we have available to us. For us, we cannot, as an organization, as a company, really be successful unless we bring the diversity together. We are 50,000 people strong. That's a team of 50,000 people. And within that, we have a lot of smaller teams that come together with the diverse backgrounds, diverse disciplines to solve the problems. And it's really, really important, especially today, to stand your ground and promote those values that are meaningful, and not just because it's the right thing to do, but frankly, it's good for business and it's good for society, and it's very, very important. And I'm really excited about this partnership that we have with FC Bayern, because we can really now amplify this message. And as Hitachi Energy is saying, we've also put another stake in the ground to support the values. And I think that's important. It goes to the culture of our company and the partnerships that we have. We would not be where we are as a company without partnerships with all stakeholders. And we're talking about the different backgrounds that we have here. We've had partnerships with academia. We have close collaborations with the governments, with other industry players. So as you mentioned, the ecosystem is really important. And we have to be part of that ecosystem and have to contribute and together solve the challenges that we have.
Bianca, just before we started this discussion here, just a few minutes earlier, we were talking and you were mentioning the difference, in terms of the fans who go to women's football versus men's football. And in this context, it really made me think of the role that sport can play to be this unifier for society. We've talked about resilience in communities, and there is a really important aspect here that otherwise might be a whole sector of society that wouldn't have that interaction and those places for that serendipity that Professor Herrmann was talking about to come together as a community.
Yeah, it's really important. I think there's a bit of a difference, the fans who are going to the men's game or going to the women's game. But the fans are coming because they feel special. They feel there's a community being strong together, and that's what they show. And then this is, I think, very important that it's the diversity of fans. It's young families, it's kids, it's friends going to our games, which is a bit different compared to the men's game. So for us to have this diverse group of fans is very important. And you said it before, I think when you look at our team, 13 different nationalities, and they stand for something. And that's what I said, the partnership, when we had the first talks, there was like something special in the room, and we knew we share the same values here. And our players, they ask what we're doing, and they want to stand for something. So for us, it's important that we bring our players together. When we do a sponsorship like this, we have discussions about this, because for them, it's important when they play for a club and which sponsor is important for that club. So the values is a big thing for us.
We will now be asking for questions from the floor. We are placing a high premium on very brisk, punchy questions and ideally very brisk, punchy answers.
I would like to ask the panelists a very simple question. It's a stupid question, but it could be really complicated to answer. How do you facilitate serendipity?
Professor Herrmann, you were talking about the facilitation of serendipity.
The innovative environment that has to have some history and that has to be developed according to the changes that happen in society, because the society looked different 30 years ago than it looks now. And to create this atmosphere, this is full of encouragement. I think the most important thing especially we people in academia, have to do is to encourage people that they get self-confident, that they trust in themselves, and they trust in the environment they have. And this is the point. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. And at this time, after World War II, there were not very many goods, neither quantitatively nor qualitatively. But we were educated to trust in ourselves and to do the things, to do it, simply to do it and to interact with others. Science and technology has become so complex. We need to have different structures apart from the individual research approaches. But these days, clusters is necessary. The clusters with internal and international people as well, in order to tackle a problem, a complex problem, by an approach that uses different expertises, be it in science, in technology, even in social sciences. I am a great supporter of social science to become strong in real top universities. It's necessary to get this interaction of science, technology with the society, because at the end of the day, a top university has to serve to the society. This is our main issue, that sometimes scientists forget about that, by the way.
We have another question over there in the second row, sir.
My question is, we often talk about innovation and new technologies, but I feel sometimes that what we actually lag behind is executing and implementing the technologies that we already have on a vertical level. I see a lot of potential, especially in local communities, to integrate what we have. How can we speed up on a local level to actually implement the technologies that we already have available? Maybe to Minister Blume.
One for the minister, I think.
Well, actually, I think we need both. We need incremental progress. That's what you're talking about. And one reason where there can be a burden on a local level is all the bureaucracy around. So we need to really unlock the potential that you just mentioned. And I'm also a believer in this potential that is there. But next to this incremental innovation, we also need sort of disruptive innovation. And here we're talking about a completely new game. And my feeling is that, talking here about Germany, we are quite strong in the field of incremental progress and innovation, but we are way behind when it comes to innovation in new fields. The truth is our wealth still comes from innovations that are, with their basic findings, more than 100 years old. And from all the new things in the field of life sciences, etc., we desperately need more things in the basket, and that's what we are aiming at here.
Can I just mention innovation? As a technology company, I have to make a comment here.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, and I think what I would say, especially when we're looking at the energy transition and you were talking about renewables, look, the technology is there. the technology has been there for a long time and we continue to improve on it. And of course, we all, as an industry, as a company, we're working and collaborating on disruptive technologies as well. But I think I go back to what you mentioned earlier also about the ecosystem, to enable what you're talking about, to enable the energy transition and accelerate the electricity era. It really is about bringing all the stakeholders together. And I think as an industry, we need to adapt our narrative so that people can better understand the challenges and the opportunities and the solutions and how we can work better together, faster, and enable the energy transition to really accelerate it. Not enable it per se, but really accelerate it. So it really goes back to the partnerships as well.
I think there's a question at the back somewhere. Thank you.
I have two questions, if I may. The first one is for Minister Blume. And the question, you can read almost daily or hear it on the radio that German companies, or let's say Europe generally, are losing out in the scientific development with Asian companies or with US companies. We are falling behind. So my question is, do you see it also that way? And if yes, what is your party doing or investing in that we can keep up with them?
I don't know if this is true, or let me put it the other way around. I would love to see more investments from our big corporates, from the industry leaders in R&D. But you have to keep in mind that, talking about the car making industry, for example, there are huge transformations going on and they are sort of struggling to keep on track in all these single transformations. What is a mess when you have a global reach and you cannot choose only one technology, but you are aiming at being a technology leader in all the different fields. What is right, and we see it all in the field of science, Professor Herrmann, we have to keep in mind that China is become a huge player in this field. Among the top 10 research institutions, according to the Nature Index, we have one from Europe, this is Max Planck, we have one from the United States, this is Harvard, and all the others out of the top 10 are Chinese institutions. So to some degree, you can say China is also taking over in the field of science and research. And the times we were worried about that they are copying from us are to some degree over. And China is a significant player also in the scientific world.
We'll just get one final question from here.
Thank you. I have a question to Minister Blume. Germany's endowment in research and development is strong, and it's knowingly strong, but we are not so good in commercializing. Now, as a minister, you're focusing on research. How do you build bridges towards commercialization? I mean, how do you do that from a political policy point of view?
Well, this is the 1 billion euro question, and this is basically our daily doing. We have one thing where we are struggling with here in Europe. This is the scale-up phase. So the last step before commercialization or industrialization. So I am absolutely d'accord. And I think we have two issues. One issue is that we do not have this European capital market. We do not have a European stock exchange for high tech. We have no European NASDAQ. And this is one thing where we lose ground. And the other thing is that we need more ambition when it comes to creating new industries. We have everything here. We have the brightest talents, and we are in all the different fields with technology leaders here. We have the technology, and we have fantastic startups. The ecosystem Professor Herrmann was talking about, Unternehmertum, is outstanding. It's the number one incubator here in Europe, the second time in a row. And the point is, we must allow companies to develop from the startup and the scale-up level to become an industry leader. And here we need a stronger position of the state, because the thing is, the Silicon Valley, for example, was also so successful, or the semiconductor business in the Asian region, because from the public side, there was heavily spending and funding all these developments. And this is where we need a new mindset here also in Europe, and more willingness to emerge from high-tech policies also to sort of industry policies.
And young people these days take much more risk than we did 50 years ago in academia. But still what is missing, and which is a big gap, is venture capital in Germany and Europe. That's the point. And I'm afraid that many of the successful young people with their technological ideas and projects move away from Germany and Europe.
This special episode of The Foreign Desk was recorded on February 12th, 2026 at Holzrausch Studio in Munich in partnership with Hitachi Energy. For more episodes of The Foreign Desk, go to monocle.com/radio and look out for the book Powering Purpose, a collaboration between Monocle and Hitachi Energy, available at monocle.com/shop. I'm Andrew Mueller. Thanks for listening.